Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
My name is Gemma. I remember the photograph clearly, our family, posing on the creaky porch of my childhood home, sunlight casting a golden haze around us like some divine blessing. Father stood behind Mother, her smile composed, her hands on Timothy's shoulders, and there I was, barely visible at the edge of the frame, 1 foot already stepping out. It wasn't accidental. It never was. People say childhood shapes you. Mine molded me into a shadow. Timothy was the sun. 4 years my junior, soft-voiced, wide-eyed, and perpetually needy. Every scraped knee, every missed homework, every tantrum, every whim. He was comforted, defended, cradled in praise. I was the dependable one. The one expected to understand when my piano lessons were canceled to pay for his soccer gear. The one told, "You're stronger than him, Gemma, you don't need so much." I learned to make myself small. Mother always made excuses. Timothy's delicate, she'd whisper as she added more syrup to his pancakes while my plate sat cold. "He's just not like you, Gemma," she said it with a kind smile that cut like glass. I buried myself in sketches and color palettes, building imaginary rooms filled with beauty and peace, spaces that didn't shrink for others, that welcomed me in full. At 16, I decided I'd be an interior designer. For a long 6 years, I studied this profession diligently. Not one person in my family took it seriously. "You can't make a living choosing curtains," Dad snorted once over dinner, while Timothy loudly crunched cereal beside him, aged 18 and still jobless. I made a living. Now 34, I had saved enough to buy my own home. Not a palace, but a quiet 2-bedroom cottage on the edge of the city. 9 years of budgeting, living modestly, working weekends, skipping vacations, investing carefully. No one knew. I didn't want them to. Until that dinner. We sat around the same old table. Aged wood, wine rings never cleaned, the scent of roast chicken clinging to the wallpaper. Timothy was there with Amelia, his wife, a perpetual sigh of a woman. Their 2-year-old Leo was busy smashing peas into the tablecloth. "I've been looking at places," I said cautiously, setting my fork down. "Thinking of buying something small, something just for me." Mother perked up. "Oh, how perfect. We've been talking about that, haven't we?" My brow furrowed. "Talking about what?" Timothy leaned back smug. "A bigger place. One we can all be in. Amelia and I can't keep renting forever. And you don't really need all that space alone, right?" My pulse slowed. Dad chimed in. "We've seen this great 6-bedroom in Oak Ridge. A bit above your range, but if you stretch, it's doable." "You planned this?" I asked, stunned. "Don't be so dramatic," Mother said, slicing into her meat. "It's just practical. You're not getting younger, Gemma. Family is everything." Amelia looked up briefly. Leo would love a yard. It felt like a trap disguised in affection. My mouth was dry. I wanted to scream, but I smiled instead. "Let me think about it," I said, voice barely above a whisper. But I already had. And none of them had a clue. I had closed on the house 3 days ago. I held the brass key in my palm like it was a relic, cold, solid, and completely mine. The lock clicked beneath it with a quiet dignity, and as the door creaked open, I stepped into the soft light of my own beginning. The cottage smelled faintly of sawdust and lavender. Pale wooden floors stretched across the narrow living space, the windows framed with faded lace curtains that danced lazily in the breeze. Nothing extravagant, just enough. Enough to breathe. I dropped my overnight bag onto the couch and stood still, listening to the silence. No one shouting, no children crying, no one asking, "Gemma, can you help with this?" Or, "Did you remember to pick up Timothy's dry cleaning?" Just me. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like years. By mid-afternoon, I had unpacked a box of mugs and my favorite lamp, a tulip-shaped antique I'd bought with my first freelance paycheck. As the bulb flickered on, casting golden rings across the room, I felt something unfamiliar stir in my chest. Joy. Not the brittle, borrowed kind I had grown used to. Real joy. Quiet, undemanding mine. My phone buzzed. 10 missed calls, 8 messages, 1 voicemail. "Mum. We need to talk, Gemma. You can't be serious. Your brother is devastated. Dad. We're not angry, just disappointed. You could have said something before you made such a selfish decision. Timothy. So you'd rather live alone like a hermit than help your family? Wow. I stared at the screen and for the first time didn't feel guilt. Only clarity. They didn't see me, they only saw the space I could fill for them. My fingers hovered over the keypad, then settled. I typed one message. I bought a house for myself. I'm not sorry. I pressed send. An hour later, a knock at the door startled me. I peeked through the peephole and froze. Mom, how did you find me? I wondered. Oh, I got a tip at your job, replied Mom. She stood there, arms crossed, lips tight. No warm smile, just frost. I thought we could talk. Against better judgment, I let her in. She walked through the cottage like she was inspecting a crime scene. This is it? She asked, running a finger over the bookshelf. 2 bedrooms? No yard? I didn't buy it for you, I said calmly. I bought it for me. She turned sharply. You're throwing us away, Gemma? Do you realize what this means for your brother? I do, I said. It means he has to learn to stand without me. Her jaw tightened. You've changed. No, I said softly. I've finally stopped changing for you. She left without another word. The following morning, I woke up to a small thud against my front door. Another. Then another. I slipped on my robe and opened it cautiously. A stack of printed real estate listings lay at my feet, held down by a rock. All oversized homes, all with potential for large families. A sticky note was scrawled in Dad's firm hand. You still have time to make this right. I crumpled the listings without hesitation. Later that day, I was reorganizing my books in the living room when the doorbell rang. This time, it was Timothy, hands in his hoodie pockets, shoulders slouched, eyes carrying the same entitlement he always wore like a second skin. You don't even have kids, he scoffed as he stepped inside uninvited. You don't need all this space. It's 80 square meters, I said, folding my arms. You have a wife and 2 kids. You should have planned accordingly. We did. That's the point. His voice rose. Mom and Dad told us you'd take care of it. I blinked. Excuse me. He ran a hand through his messy hair. They said you'd buy the house and we'd move in. That's why we didn't renew our lease. I stared at him stunned. So you gambled with your family's housing on me? He looked away. They said you'd never say no. A crack formed, right there in the middle of my chest. Not from guilt, but from the weight of finally knowing. Well, I said quietly, walking to the door, it's time you learned that I can. He stood frozen, then left, slamming the door so hard the tulip lamp flickered. I picked it up gently and smiled. Brick by brick, I was rebuilding. Not a house, a life. The silence didn't last long. That evening, my phone exploded with messages. Missed calls from Mum, voicemails from Dad. A text from Timothy's wife, Amelia, so selfish. Our kids don't deserve this. By morning, Mum was at my door. I watched her from the window, her posture stiff, a casserole dish clutched like a peace offering or a weapon. I opened the door halfway. We raised you better than this, she said without greeting. Better than what? I asked calmly. Better than turning your back on your family, she snapped. Do you know Timothy's children cried themselves to sleep last night? I'm not their mother. Her eyes narrowed. You were always the responsible one. We thought you'd understand. I let out a bitter laugh. No, you hope I'd sacrifice myself quietly, just like always. Her mouth opened, then closed. I lived on soup and denying herself everything. For 9 years, Mum. Not once did you ask if I was happy. She looked down at the dish. We didn't think you'd be so cold. I took the dish gently, set it on the floor, and stepped back. I'm not cold. I'm finally warm in my own home. I closed the door softly. Through the peephole, I saw her stand there stunned, then slowly walk away. The backlash had begun, but so had my freedom. Next week in my new home was eerily quiet. No more texts, no knocks, just the steady hum of the heater and the whisper of wind against the windows. And then, an envelope. Slipped under my door, no stamp. Inside was a single note, scribbled in Timothy's familiar, jagged handwriting. Enjoy your little life. Must be nice to walk away from all of us. I stared at the paper, not in anger, but in peace. Because for the first time, the manipulation was plain. Unmasked. Later that afternoon, while sanding an old side table I'd found at a thrift store, a knock came again. Different this time. Light. Hesitant. I opened the door to see Mrs. Appleton from 2 houses down, holding a basket of oranges and smiling kindly. "Thought you might need some vitamin C," she chuckled. "Moving alone is brave." I almost cried. Not because of the fruit, but because anyone, saw me not as a resource, not as a solution, but simply as Gemma. We talked for 20 minutes. About sanding wood. About books. About freedom. As the sky turned lavender, I stood at my kitchen window, oranges in a bowl, wood shavings on my sweater, and I smiled. Sometimes the light doesn't pour in through wide open doors. Sometimes it finds you through the hairline crack, after the whole house goes quiet.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.